Welcome back. If you've only just joined us, you're watching the Daily Roundup with Nina here on NBC One. Now, Namibia's urban roads are deteriorating rapidly, with potholes deepening across towns and cities as funding shortages and centralized control over road maintenance takes their toll. The Road Fund Administration, the RFA, recently revealed that it urgently requires $1.3 billion Namibia to repair roads ahead of the rainy season, warning that delays would worsen infrastructure damage and increase vehicle maintenance costs for motorists. To help us understand the challenges behind road funding and the proposed solutions and how these issues affect local authorities, we're joined this evening by the Chief Executive Officer at the Road Fund Administration, Mr. Iipinge. Mr. Iipinge, good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Nina. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Perhaps just to start with and to contextualize the conversation we're about to have, start by explaining to us the mandate of the Road Fund Administration.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to explain the mandate of the Road Fund Administration, in particular how it impacts the performance of the road sector, but also how it contributes to the economic development of this country. Now, the mandate for the Road Fund is quite straightforward. It says, and it's part of the law as enacted in 1999, to provide for the, as a mandate, to provide for the management of the road fund, and to ensure then that the determination of the road user charges as prescribed by law is set, and then also that the rates or the tariffs are set in accordance to those principles of user pay principle. Now, we also are responsible then for ensuring that we determine the level of funding to each approved authority that benefit from the road user charges. In addition to that, we are also not just responsible for collecting the funds, setting the charges, but also we are responsible for making sure that the approved authorities, and I'll go through that in a moment as to who are the approved authorities in terms of the RFA Act, but also to make sure that the monitoring and the compliance of how those funds are utilized falls squarely within our mandate as an institution. Now, I spoke about the approved authorities. Right. Who are those approved authorities that then benefit from the road fund? Chiefly, we have the Roads Authority, correct, which by law, in fact, we established at the same time they also established an Act of Parliament of 1999. They are responsible for the planning, design, and construction of the national roads. So that is their mandate. Now, when it comes to the other approved authority, in this instance, it's the local authorities. Right. In as far as the roads management is concerned of urban roads and streets, the Act, the Local Authority Act of 1992, provides specific powers to each and every local authority. And Section 30, subsection 1E, clearly give those powers to construct and maintain streets and public spaces. So they are responsible in terms of the law to make sure that the urban roads and streets are constructed and are maintained to benefit the public. But also the Local Authority Act provide also instruments for funding that service. In other words, the roads construction and maintenance. So, and Section 80, subsection 1 of the Act gives a variety of funding instruments and options for them to also ensure that the urban roads are well maintained. So the responsibility falls between, of course, then the local authority and then ourselves. So our Act is also quite specific. It says we may defray cost to the local authorities in as far as road maintenance is concerned, but also in as far as the construction or the planning, construction of major arterial roads within the urban setting. And I'll go through some of the initiatives then that we have deployed in line with that specific legal provision for us to support them. It doesn't say RFA is wholly responsible for the maintenance and construction of urban roads.
Right.
The responsibility lies between the two institutions.
Thank you for clarifying that, because there have been some concerns from the local authorities that too much control, and I suppose on the financial control, lies with the RFA and with the roads authority, leaving the municipalities without real decision-making power. So in line with what you've just said, how do you respond to that, and then also clarify to us what you've just touched on earlier?
All right, so as a road fund, as a custodian of the road fund, we have an obligation in law to make sure that any cent that we collect from the road users is effectively used for that purpose.
Right.
So, and if I refer to just a section in our law, it says the administration shall, after compliance with the setting up procedures as might be determined by the minister, in this instance the Minister of Finance, frame the rules and principles which shall, for the purpose of effective achievement of the objective of the RFA, shall propose new projects and programs, and then also administrative expenditure that is aligned to that mandate. So within that specific section of the law, it does not absolve us from making sure that we put in place control mechanism to ensure that the road users get the value for money for the cent or for the dollar that they contribute. So in this instance, the capacity, especially engineering capacity in most local authorities, unfortunately is very low, or it does not exist. So to ensure then that we provide the necessary support and funding, we then entered into a number of agreements, memorandum of agreements with selected local authorities. And we have got about 9 of those that we have started with about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And in this instance, City of Windhoek is also a beneficiary of that memorandum of agreement. Because of inherent capacity shortage, we then as an institution rope in the roads authority, given the capacity that they have in terms of engineering, and also the number of professional engineers that they have on board, to help assist, carry on some of these major rehabilitation effort or reseal programs in a number of local authorities. Hence, the roads authority came to aid basically us to ensure that a service is provided to the local authorities.
Yeah.
And for us, that has helped us to unlock some of the key challenges that existed. And we have seen that these memorandum of agreements and the relationship between now us, Roads Authority, and a local authority has really yielded a number of positive results for us. And Rundu being just one example, where we have, over the past 3 years, helped rehabilitate and reseal about 15 kilometers of roads within the town of Rundu. We are doing exactly the same thing in Ochivarongo, Tsumeb. We are also supporting Katima Mulilo, Wolfish Bay municipalities, and the City of Windhoek.
Thank you.
And we're doing that not because we want to exert control. As I said, local authority has got within their law powers to do exact same thing, generate their own funding to provide for this service to the ratepayers within that local authorities.
Yeah.
But as an institution, we have an obligation, and we're only managing that part of our obligation to make sure that the funds are appropriately utilized, so that we don't see the road fund money going to pay water or electricity bills for these local authorities. So we want to ensure then that each cent that we provide for on an annual basis is then spent on the road.
Thank you. I just want to move on to the statement you made, of course, saying that, you know, the Namibia's roads are deteriorating and that the administration currently does need $1.3 billion to be able to address that. Does that include the backlog maintenance and rehabilitation funding as well? And if so, also talk to us about the long-term plan then to close this gap sustainably.
So if I can maybe talk at a high level, what is required in terms of the road rehabilitation and maintenance funding, both at the national level, but also at the urban or local authority level. And we went through an exercise a week ago where we were presenting in terms of law what is the funding determination, but also what is the available funding that we can generate per annum to fund these funding requirements from the approved authorities, both at the national level as implemented by the Roads Authority, but also at the urban setting as implemented by various local authorities.
Right.
So that funding requirement actually came at an estimate of about 8.8 billion Namibian dollars. That is a quantum of funding required to rehabilitate, particularly the largest chunk of that is on the national roads.
Wow.
To rehabilitate key transport corridors. And we are seeing that a number of those roads have been designed or constructed in the 60s and 70s. Right. So naturally they have outlived this design lifespan. So we need to put in mechanism in place to fully rehabilitate. So that is part of that funding requirement.
So from 8.8 billion to 1.3 billion, there's still a major gap then that exists.
So the 1.3 billion, I'll come to that. That was actually a funding request for this particular calendar year to address the effect of heavy rains and climate change this year. So there was a specific request made by the approved authorities, including the municipalities, to deal with the heavy rain situation. But that, of course, is a symptom. So what we are seeing is that the number of roads also in the local authority areas have lived its design lifespan. So that's where the challenge is. So now coming back to the $8.8 billion question, how do we then make sure that as an institution, but also as a state, how do we then come closer to deal with those funding requirements? Because at the moment, the road fund, in terms of its revenue from the road user charges, not from state, we don't get appropriation from government. This is purely from the road users and road user charges. We generate only about 4.2 billion. So the gap is what we're talking about. So how do we then close that funding gap? Of course, we do have ideas, both on the short, medium, to long term, how to close that funding gap. Now, we were misquoted, I believe, last week when we were presenting these facts to the stakeholders. So all the key stakeholders from local authorities, roads authorities, and other beneficiaries were in the same room. And we were saying for us to close that gap of about 4.6 billion, we need key interventions. So the short-term interventions, we said we probably should be looking at adjusting the fuel levy. And the fuel levy, as defined by the RFA Act, at the moment stands at about $2.40. That's we collect from you, the road users, and myself, of course. I'm also a road user. So every time I fill up, I need to pay that charge. But that makes up, in terms of the total revenue envelope, the fuel levy is about 55% of the RFA total revenues. Other income comes from the vehicle license fees, cross-border charges, and mass distance charges. But as an interim measure, we are asking then that we progressively adjust the road user charges, inclusive of the fuel levy, not by $2 as being quoted in the media, some media houses. We're not asking to burden the road users by asking for a $2 fuel levy adjustment today. That is unaffordable, and we have to also consider the economic condition of the people and the country, of course.
Mr. Iipinge, unfortunately, we are running out of time. So just in conclusion, what final remarks you have for us on where things stand right now? So
where things stand now, we are saying we need to work together as a sector. We need to review our road user charges to align them to the needs of our sector. If we do nothing now, the cost of bad roads, unfortunately, is passed on to the user.
Yeah.
And that's a situation where we want to not get ourselves in as a country. We have enjoyed good ranking globally and also in Africa for the past 7 years as a country with not only good roads, but accessibility by an average Namibian to the road sector.
Yeah.
And we have provided for that through, of course, the road users charges, but also through the state investment in the road sector. But we're saying that we need to then adjust those tariffs to make sure that we do not see our road network deteriorate further. It's a huge asset. The replacement value is in the order of 220 billion. So if we don't invest in the maintenance and rehabilitation, reseal, both at the national level, but also at the local authority level, we are going to see that asset deteriorating over time and depreciating much further, which we don't want to see.
Of course.
Yeah.
Mr. Iipinge, thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you for joining us here on the Daily
Nina,
Roundup.
for having me. Thank you.
We're going to take a very brief break, and our conversations continue right after that.